Thank you, Concurler. The Taoiseach and the Minister for Health launched pretty extraordinary attacks on our hard-working frontline healthcare staff earlier this week. And they sought in those attacks to place the blame for the difficulties in the health service on those staff, our doctors and our nurses. And they suggested that the solution to meet the pressures in our hospitals was that they would work over Christmas. Minister Harris said that the Taoiseach's analysis was entirely correct. It's a completely oversimplification of the challenges facing our health service, and it's a pathetic attempt to deflect from the government's own role and own responsibility in the difficulties in our health service and in our hospitals. Blaming frontline staff who work 24 hours, 365-day basis, who do work Christmas, who do work New Year's, who do work bank holidays, is not acceptable when conditions are as challenging as they are. Blaming existing frontline staff is very hard to take when there are 300 vacant consultant posts and 252 less staff nurses working in our hospitals this month compared to last December. Patients have massive problems accessing our healthcare service. When they do, they are met with excellent staff, or they are generally met with excellent staff. However, we see today that that's not always the way. Extraordinary judgment yesterday from the President of the High Court, Peter Kelly, in relation to a case involving the suspension of a junior doctor in one of our maternity hospitals. This doctor never worked as a doctor in any other hospital. Consultants who worked with him said he did not even meet the basic standards, yet he's reported to have attained a very impressive score in interview statistics. Justice Kelly in his report has said that this particular case isn't isolated. This is an appalling situation. And I want a number of questions from you today. Firstly, when was Minister Harris informed of this particular case? The judgment was only published yesterday, but was delivered some weeks ago. Can you confirm that the government are investigating this particular issue? But also, can you give guarantees that there are no other such rogue doctors working within our system? Doctors who are not in a position to deliver on basic skills that people expect. And what new measures will be put in place? Because this wasn't just highlighted yesterday, Taoiseach. Deputy Donnelly has referred to the recruitment of NCHDs on a number of occasions. We have highlighted the inadequacies in recruitment on a number of occasions, so this is an issue that is ongoing and that should be a matter of priority for the Minister for Health. So instead of attacking our doctors and instead of attacking our nurses and getting headlines and deflecting from your own responsibility, can you outline the plans you have for dealing with this very serious issue and for reassuring the public that our doctors and our healthcare professionals are up to standard?
Thank you, Concurler. There are quite a few questions there. Can I deal with your first one and your commentary in relation to what the Taoiseach had to say at the start of this week? The Taoiseach wasn't blaming anybody for anything. What he was doing was pointing out the reality that at the most pressurised time of year in hospitals, we need to make sure that we have a full staff complement there, and that people who have the responsibility to give leadership to their health teams within hospitals are there to do that when pressure is at its most intense and acute, and that we don't have skeleton staff arrangements at times of the year where there is significant pressure, where patient care needs to be prioritised. That was the point that he made, and the point that Minister Harris has reinforced is that, of course, there is a responsibility to ensure that rostering is in place to make sure that the key people, the key team leaders, and sufficient numbers of staff to support them are there through the winter period, and as importantly for the first 2 weeks of January, when we know that hospitals will be under huge pressure, as they are every year. And so when Deputy Martin raised the issue of preparing for the winter pressures in healthcare and in hospitals, the Taoiseach, as he always does, addressed the issue directly and head-on, that yes, we must continue to focus on capacity. And this year we've added an extra 240 beds to the system and spent tens of millions of euros doing that. And we need to continue to add capacity to our hospitals. But we also need to address the short-term challenges that we know are coming this winter. And we need to make sure that our team leaders are there to try and address that in person, in hospitals, at the times of year when they're most needed, regardless of whether that's Christmas time or not. And that's the point that he made, and I think he was right to make that point directly. In relation to the President of the High Court and his judgment where he has said that defective procedures for recruiting doctors represent a danger to patients, he made this observation in a judgment ordering the suspension of a junior doctor. These comments have been obviously widely reported in the media. Can I say that Minister Harris is seeking an urgent response from his department and the HSE on the circumstances of this specific case, the implications of Mr Kelly's judgment and the implementation of actions arising from it.
Urgent response. That's the usual line. Seek an urgent response and hope the media go away. When in March 2016 there was a similar case where a doctor employed in 4 hospitals, despite concerns about his performance, and the file was submitted to the Minister for Health, the then Minister for Health, Taoiseach Varadkar, following that particular case, who was found guilty in a fitness to practice inquiry of 28 counts of poor performance by the Medical Council. And at that stage, the HSE, in March 2016, gave a commitment to establish a standardised policy to deal with references and Garda medical registration checks. That was March 2016, 2.5 years ago, and yet yesterday, November 2018, we have a situation where the President of the High Court has absolutely slammed recruitment procedures within the HSE. He's incredibly, you need to read the judgment to see his comments in relation to the recruitment procedures, and then what those procedures are doing to people who's looking for treatment from these doctors. You cannot just dismiss this, and you cannot do the usual minister looking for a report. We need answers, and we need guarantees that there are no more doctors of this calibre in the system, that they can be rooted out, that other people haven't got through this flawed recruitment process. That's the assurance you need to give today.
Let me give you an absolute assurance that the Minister is taking this very seriously. Judge Peter Kelly is a very serious individual, and when he makes a judgment like this, the government listens and acts on it. I think it's important to outline to the House how recruitment in the HSE actually works. The HSE recruitment is managed by their National Recruitment Service. The NCHD recruitment is handled by individual hospital group level. NCHD interviews are held at hospital level with local clinicians involved in interviewing and the selection process. Recruitment in the HSE is subject to the Commission for Public Service Appointments Codes of Practice. The HSE is also subject to regular monitoring and auditing by the Commission of its recruitment and selection activities, and the HSE is currently undertaking a detailed review of recruitment processes with a view to introducing a revised model next year. So clearly the concerns that have been raised here, Deputy, are and will be taken very seriously in the context of that review.